Good afternoon. I'm John Charles from the Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona. We're delighted to have with us New York Times bestselling author Kristen Ashley, who's here for her release of her new book, Dreammaker.
Yay.
And we'll pause while hands out. I have some questions for Kristen. I believe if you're on Facebook, you're welcome to message in with any questions you might have. But we'll go ahead and get started. And my first question is a very basic one. Kristen, tell us a little bit about yourself prior to becoming an author.
Well, first, thanks for having me. I love this bookstore, and if you're in the Phoenix area, you have to come down here when they reopen, because it's great, and it just feels so good to be in a bookstore again. It's crazy. So, before writing, well, it feels like I've been writing forever, but before I started publishing, I worked in charity. I worked mostly for health charities, doing everything. Fundraising, HR, the whole shebang, and once I worked for a community center in England, and I actually wrote a book based on that. I dedicated the book to the community center, Lacey Bourne Manor, in my Ghost and Reincarnation series, and the character of Sybil is based on me in this fabulous community center on a council estate in England.
Early on in life, you discovered you were a storyteller. How did that happen?
Well, it started actually with letters. I used to write a lot of letters. My mom would, it's weird because you don't know where to look when I look at you or when I look at camera. My mom would buy me all this pretty note paper, and I would just write letters to family and friends. And when I went to college, I wrote a lot of letters, moved to Denver from home in Indiana, and wrote letters. And one of my friends, when I was home from Denver, she said, "I love to get your letters." And of course they were very, very long-winded letters, and she said they were just so funny, and I just couldn't wait to open it up and read them. And I think that was when I thought, hey, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've been reading romance since I was 12 or 13, and I decided I want to write romance. At that age, reading Harlequin Presents, my mom's Harlequin Presents romance novels, and but I never really, thought I could actually do it until my girlfriend told me she loved my letters. I thought maybe I've got something.
Okay, let's switch gears and tell us a little bit about your new book that brought you here, Dreammaker.
Dreammaker was it was unexpected. A lot of my books, I never know they're going to happen. And I was writing Quiet Man for 1001 Dark Nights. It's a Dream Man book with Mo and Lottie. And Mo is obviously one of Hawk's men from Mystery Man, and Lottie is Jet's sister from Rock Chick Rescue. And so it was kind of, a mashup of those two series. But Mo had these great friends. All his best friends are all commandos, and they were all very funny and supportive and loyal and good looking, and I thought, wow, this is something. And so as Quiet Man was being told, I realized it would be kind of fun to write Lottie and Mo, well, Lottie mostly, fixing up all of Mo's alpha male friends with her girlfriends. And the Dream Team series was born, with Dreammaker being the first, with Evie and Mag's story.
Tell us about Evie.
Okay, Evie is, what I wanted to do with this story is I really wanted to write about women in non-traditional feminine roles, or with non-traditional feminine interests. And I have, Evie is not my niece, but I have this I have two incredibly brilliant nieces. One's a nurse and one's an engineer. And when I was in my 40s, my niece, who's now an engineer, explained to me when she was in high school what a transistor was. And it totally went over my head. It's just not how I think. And I remember her looking at me, and you could just see from the expression on her face that she's like, I'm smarter than my aunt. I'm 16 years old, and I'm actually smarter than her. So they're both brilliant. And I really like to explore that idea of this kind of genius girl who, unfortunately, Jill didn't live this, but my niece, but Evie didn't have a lot of support. And what comes of you when you're this very, very bright young woman from a very dysfunctional family that does not support you. And so I really like to explore. That's very much not me. You should have seen me trying to figure out, how she did calculations in her head, etc., and how she viewed the world. And so that's where all the characters, where we'll begin with all of the heroines from the series, is they'll all each have a maybe not completely traditional feminine dream.
Okay, now let's move on to your hero, Mag.
Okay, Mag. What I like about these guys is it kind of captures them. Hawk is my hero from Mystery Man, and he's kind of this has this tortured past, and he's fully realized. He's more mature, and he's lived his life. He was married before, and these guys are kind of stuck between frat boy and real man type of thing, and that's the sweet spot where they find the woman of their dreams, and they kind of grow up. They kind of learn to grow up, and as we go through, Mag will be the first, and he's kind of the most frat boyish of the lot, and they'll get more and more mature because Hawk is their mentor. So they're all kind of mentoring under Hawk, and they're dealing with an overarching situation that will unfold over the 4 books, and they have to kind of learn to be more mature, and you just do when you're that age and you get into a relationship that means something to you.
It does. Let's go back a little bit and tell us about your path to publication as a writer. You were not an overnight success, were you?
No. People think I was, but I wasn't. I started writing my first. I started and stopped writing much in my 20s. I'm 52 now, and I finished my first book when I was 30 years old, and I tried to get it published. And subsequent books that I wrote, and I was rejected by publishers and agents alike. And in my 40s, the independent publishing became much easier, and it kind of moved from a term I seriously hate, vanity publishing, into a real avenue for people's voices to be heard. So and by this time I'd been writing since I was 30. So I had, I think, around 25, 27 books finished, or mostly finished, and I just quit my job. Don't do that. Do not do that. But I gave myself a year, and I put everything together. The website and the social media, and I made a logo, and all of these important things that you need. Built the mission around my books and what my message was going to be, and I just published the books one after the other. I didn't even have them professionally edited. My husband created the covers, and all that's changed now. And then after 6 months, Marie's from Marie's book blog, she reviewed Sweet Dreams, and I was lucky to sell a book a week. A good week was, I think my biggest week was 5 books. It was very disheartening. But I planned for success, and I expected failure. And I just assumed I would go back to work. But then Marie's reviewed me, and I was selling, within a few days, I was selling thousands of books. Yeah. So it was overnight in a way. In like a 25-year process way.
Now, a lot of people who may not be familiar with publishing don't really understand independent publishing. There's more to it than just writing a book. You have to be an editor, a marketer. Can you go talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm fortunate in the sense that I am able to have a team. I built my team. I'm a hybrid publisher, so Dreammaker is published traditionally through Grand Central Publishing, the Forever line, but I built my team based on, what I got when Grand Central started publishing my Dream Man series and Chaos, and Colorado Mountain. So I have an editor, and I have a proofer, and I have a graphic designer, and I have people in these places that do these things. But it is, and there's some things that I do myself. Like every word on my website is written by me, and I change my website. I don't have any social media. If a social media post comes up, I've typed it out. I've put it up. And sometimes I think, well, I should farm that out, but I like to be in contact with my readers in that way. But it is business. I run a business, and I like to say, in the diva in me, that I run a multinational publishing company. I just only have one author, but I do, in essence, and I take it that seriously.
What are some of the advantages to being a hybrid author, and are there any disadvantages?
I'm really in a good place. I'm very lucky. I feel I'm very lucky. I think that so I absolutely have the best of both worlds. But when you're independent, you do. There's a lot of pressure on you. You have to make a lot of decisions, and they're pretty vital decisions about the look of a book, or what a cover is going to look like, or etc. But you also have that freedom, so that's the other side, and that's why I like to be hybrid, because then sometimes I have a team where I can, where we can talk about what the cover is going to look like, or how the marketing is going to be, or what giveaways we're going to do, and I don't have to do all the work, or ask my sister, who works with me, who manages the professional side, do all the work. So I mean, it is good to lean on somebody. So yeah, so I have best of both worlds.
Let's talk a little bit about your writing process. I read somewhere that you seem to let your characters kind of tell their stories to you. It's an organic process versus a more structured process.
Yeah, I recently wrote a fantasy series that was the first time I've ever structured a set of books, which was very cool. It was a really neat process, and I thought, well, I'm going to do this with every book. Well, of course that did not happen. Essentially, yeah, they just come to me like they're real people telling me their story, or their story is playing out in my head like a movie, and that's one of the reasons why, I essentially hibernate when I write. I don't, when I first moved back to the States from England, my sister was terrified about my writing process because I completely dropped off the face of the earth, and she would text me and say, I'm bringing you dinner. Because I think she wanted to know I was alive. Because I'm terrified of losing the movie. If I get distracted by anything else. So I don't open mail. I really don't do anything.
Immerse yourself.
Yes, complete immersion. Sometimes I have to, I have bills to pay and things like that. I have to surface, but usually it's just I let that movie play. I have learned after all these years to stop, to hit stop at a certain time of the day and kind of make dinner, etc. Feed my cat and things like that. But yeah, I can't mess with it. It's just the way that it is.
Has a character ever done something that you didn't anticipate, that you really didn't think was characteristic but essential to the story?
Yeah, that happens quite a bit, but the biggest one was Tack in Motorcycle Man. He did something that I didn't like. I felt like my heroes can be very alpha, and he stepped over a massive line for me, and I was pretty angry with him, and I didn't like it. And so I wanted to rewrite the scene with what he did, where he manhandles the heroine in a way that I thought was not okay. Not that manhandling is okay in any sense, but this was definitely, you know, and he was incredibly resistant to me changing that, and oh, I struggled until we were at that place where he explained it to her, to Tyra, the heroine. I didn't get him. You know, I didn't feel it until we got there. And then I thought, okay, let's just hope that readers won't just bin this novel too. And he's beloved. Fortunately, he's one of my most popular heroes because people gave him a chance, which is pretty cool, actually.
Somewhere it was mentioned that music plays an important part in your life and your writing process. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Music is a huge thing for me, and you'll see on my website if a book has any music in it. I have a playlist on my website, on the title page of the website. I even recently wrote a book about a rock band called Fastlane. That's kind of an oral narrative plus a regular narrative that I just loved because I could completely just, be in rock and roll and research all these, bands and history of rock, etc. But it could even be a song. Like I was walking once and a Jose Gonzalez song came on my earphones and an entire book hit me. And I'm just like, okay, and then I had to walk very fast to get home so I could start writing this book. It's.
Was there a particular song or piece of music for Dreammaker?
No, sadly not. Though Evie does explain who her father is through a Bob Seger song in the book.
For readers who might not be familiar with your books, and it's hard to imagine that there are any, but let's pretend. What 3 words would you pick that best describe your writing style?
Wow, that's a really good question. Oh my goodness. Humor, sisterhood, and acceptance.
You've written books that are in Romance's version of series, I guess, or connected books. Do you initially plan that out, or does it just evolve organically? Do you ever write yourself kind of into the corner you have to rewrite yourself out of? Talk to us about connected books in your world.
This is another really awesome question. It's both. Sometimes you know right away. Like the Dream Man books. In the first book, there's 4 guys that kind of interact with the heroine, and in my head, that was that was going to be it. It was going to be those 4 guys in the series, and that's over. Rock Chick, I had made the decision with my Rock Chick series that there were going to be 6 books, and knew who the guys were, and then new guys would introduce themselves, and new girls would introduce them. I'm like, oh, they have to have a book. So it was very, very fluid, but I wanted to be sure that's my flagship series. I wanted to be sure, and it has a formula for every single book, and I wanted to be sure that it didn't get stale. So I eventually had to find a place to end it. Of course, I've written 2 novellas since then, so I'll give myself permission to dip into that world, and my characters cross over all over the place, unless they're paranormal or fantasy. We'll probably see a crossover in every single book.
Dreammaker does pick up from 2 of your other series.
Yeah, 3. The Unfinished Heroes is also, I think, Night's in there.
I think it's important to mention that you don't have to have read the other books to enjoy your books. They all kind of work by themselves, but they're a little bit more rich with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I try very hard to make sure that if there's somebody you might sense that that they have a story, but they're explained. But for readers who read, they're Easter eggs for them. It's definitely my opportunities to spend time with these characters because I love them. and I don't want to say goodbye. I can't say goodbye, as you can tell, because I cross over so much. But it also gives my readers an opportunity to see people interacting and to visit old friends.
It seems like social media plays more and more of a role in an author's life. Can you talk to us about your relationship with social media? Any stories you have with readers that might be entertaining?
I love social media. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I love it. I have a lot of fun there. And I think it's because when I started my social media when I started, and I didn't have readers. So as my readership grew and my career took off, they were along for the ride. So it feels very much like a team effort, in my sense. And you get really busy, and for a while there, I didn't really have as much time to spend on social media as I would have liked to. It just felt like a marketing platform, which is not fun. That's not why I set it up, and it's not how I used it in the beginning. And so we're back on track with that. And that's I really like to commune with my readers and kind of just, I don't know, read their comments and chitter chat and etc. I mean, obviously I tell them what's going on, but so that's how I do it. For me it's a sisterhood. I mean, that's the mission of my writing. All my books, I can't think of a single book where there isn't a friend, at least a friend for the heroine. Sisterhood is very, very important in my books. The strength of women, and especially women together, and how we navigate life, and how much a foundation of friendship is so important to life, and that's what I have with my readers.
You actually do conventions, don't you?
Yeah, we have Rock Chick Rendezvous. I have a different arm to what I do. It's called the Rock Chick Nation, and we do 3 different things. We raise money for women's charities. I have a special night for women that need a night out. We'll do I'll get my readers to nominate people who need a special night out, and then I buy them big gift bags of all my favorite things, clothes and makeup and face products and stuff, and we all have a nice dinner together and just commune. And then I have my huge Rock Chick Rendezvous, which are a weekend of fun. So it's cocktail parties and book signings and a big dance party, and yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out now as a writer, based on your knowledge?
I could probably talk about this for like 3 hours. I'll just cut it down to 2. One is, the biggie is to write for yourself. Don't worry about what readers are going to want or what publishers are going to want. Just find your own voice and write your own story, and it will start to flow if you do that. And it's very constraining if you try to think about doing it for other people or for sales or whatever. You just have to tell your story or listen to your characters or find your process. And the other thing is that it's a business, and we should always remember it's a business. So as much as it's art and how much you're putting of yourself and your heart into your novels, it is a business that you're running. So you need to be professional.
Treat it seriously.
Yes, definitely.
Most writers start out as readers. So let's go back into your past. Who were some of the authors and books that you loved growing up, and who have you read recently that you'd love to tell readers about?
Well, with romance, I was a massive romance reader. I was one of those people that could probably read 3, 4, 5 romance novels a week. And Judith McNaught was my top number 1 fave. Almost Heaven, A Kingdom of Dreams, Something Wonderful, Once and Always, just fabulous historical romances, and even her contemporary romances were amazing. Jude Devereaux, Joanna Lindsay. Joanna Lindsay was a massive, she wrote a Warrior's Woman, which was a novel that it was like a space sci-fi, where the heroine was, kind of essentially a fighter pilot, and her planet was taken over, and she had to go find somebody to help her, and it was just such a weird, wacky, fabulous, and I just love that this really established, popular author, went off the beaten track like that and just told the story that she wanted to tell. It was very inspirational. Now I love to read Kylie Scott. I love to read J.R. Ward, the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I'm a huge fan of the Black Dagger Brotherhood. I don't get to read as much as I would like, but I've download books all the time, and so I'm looking forward to reading Kennedy Ryan's Queen's Move. I have I think it's The Gypsy Kings by Devney Perry that I really want to, it's an MC novel that I really want to read, so yeah. My Kindle's filled, my house is filled with books. I'm both, Kindle, and I like to have the book in my hand, but sometimes it's just easier to download it, especially during a pandemic.
You've done a lot of interviews over the years. What is the one question you never get asked in an interview that you wish someone would ask you? Anything.
I don't know. That's a good. Wow, that's a good question. I don't know.
Where you buy your shoes?
These are old, but I'm glad you asked because these are I bought these in England. They're Kurt Geiger's, but the sometimes designers name their shoes, and these are named Erica, and my sister's name is Erica, so these are the Erica shoes. And Erica can't be here today, but
she is.
Yes, in some ways she's there.
What's next for you as a writer?
It's always I'm just very lucky. The stories don't dry up, and knock on wood, and so I've got a lot happening. The Dream Team has 4 books in it. I've already finished the next 2. The Rising series, my fantasy series, that was an Audible original and only available in audio, is coming out in print and digital in July. 4 books, 4 weeks. It's an epic. It's it's a serial, and they're going to come out like that. I've got Wildfire coming out. That's a chaos MC novel coming out with 1001 Dark Nights in September. So they just published After the Climb, which is a book that I wrote during the pandemic with my readers. They input on names and pets and all sorts of stuff. They pick the cover and everything, and that's for free. You can get it on my website, so I'm putting that out. And I'm also doing a charity cookbook with Suzanne Johnson. It's actually a Dream Team cookbook. My heroes cook in these books, and so they're giving you a cookbook. Unfortunately, Suzanne is making up the recipes, which are fabulous. I'm making all of them. They're delicious, and I get to incorporate her food in these novels.
Brandy Cordero from Facebook asks, do you outline your chapters or just go with the flow?
Do I outline my chapters or go with the flow? I don't. I outlined what chapter would be next in the Rising series because it's not linear. It's very, each chapter was from a different point of view and different, worlds and different countries in this different parallel universe. But no, I usually go with flow unless the flow is flowing and I'm not writing, and then I will write down very quickly what the flow was in my head. But I don't outline.
Do you prefer to write manually, or do you write on a computer, or is it a mixture?
I write on a computer, but I have a notebook. I have, it was my everything, and my Bible. It's all sorts of character names and endearments they call each other, and all sorts of things. And I just finished the first notebook. I've been using it for 12 years. and I just got to the last page, and so I just started a new notebook. Somebody said they wanted me to auction off the old notebook, which would be, really cool for one of the Rock Chick Nation charities, but I don't think you'd have to.
Right out of your hands?
Yes.
Wasn't that kind of like your Bible, because you have to go back to reference things?
Yes. Yeah.
Hannah Briner asks, has getting a movie made from one of your books changed the way you write?
Passion Flicks made my book in the Magdalene series, The Will, into a movie. Starring Megan Dodds and Chris McKenna. It's fabulous. I loved it. I loved the process. I thought it was amazing, and I love the movie. They did such a beautiful job. It's like a 600-page book and a 2-hour movie, and it was really well condensed, and it was really well. The script was beautifully written, hitting a lot of the important parts. But no, it doesn't change the way I write. So I'd love to do that. I can't wait. They have Passion Flicks has the rights to my book 3 Wishes, and I'm like super. I can't wait for that to happen.
Because the pandemic is just throwing everything.
Yes.
Jessica Godfrey asks, will Evie's sister Sydney get a book? I loved her in Dreammaker.
I love Sydney too. She was really, really, cool. I was unexpectedly cool. And so I have to say that that's not out of the realm of possibility. I also like the idea. She's a, it's kind of a spoiler. A little bit of a spoiler. But she's a lifestyle blogger. And I like I have a lot of friends who are bloggers and lifestyle bloggers. And I admire what they do. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, you think it's just so easy and just taking pretty pictures, but it's a lot of hard work. And so I'd love to kind of put a face, a fictional face to that. Maybe.
Amber Hummel asks, what happened to the lyrics people submitted for Fastlane?
Well, this is a good question, Amber. Because I've blown it on this. We had my band Preacher McCade and the Roadmasters has their own website called. They don't have a website. One of the characters, who's kind of a media mogul, an internet mogul, made a website called RocketRollIt.com, which you can get to RocketRollIt.com, and you could submit lyrics. And I do have those lyrics, and I wanted to publish them on the website, and then I started writing. Everything. I also asked people to do illustrations for the Rising book that I was hoping to use when we went to print, and I have the illustrations, and some of them are fabulous, but I haven't done anything. And mostly, really, it's an excuse, but the pandemic threw me off. I started to write after the climb, and then I just kind of it's just I think everybody's experienced just a weird. I went off target with it. I have a to-do list that I go through every week, and I bring it forward if I don't get it done. I haven't touched it since February. I'm taking every week as it comes. So doing something with the Fastlane lyrics is probably on a to-do list in February, and I just haven't brought it forward. So it will happen though. I haven't forgotten it.
Don Myers-Thiel asks, in the next year, what personal wish do you hope comes true?
Personal wish. I hope that I get to go visit the Grand Canyon. I had some travel plans this year, and some of them were important. I was going to go to Poland with the Steve Berry fan trip. Yeah, I was really excited about that. And I was going to meet my Polish publishers, and then my dearest friend lives in New Zealand, and she has kids, and I haven't seen her kids in years, and I was going to go visit her for Christmas. And New Zealand's not going to open their borders probably until January, so that's out. But I think possibly I could get to the Grand Canyon. At least to look at it. I might have to drive right back home, but yeah.
Kara Carr Barth asks, Do you have an idea for the title chapter before writing or once the chapter is done?
It's almost always once the chapter is done, then I'll title the chapter. Sometimes though, the chapter will have played in my head already, so I'll know what to call it in the beginning. But usually when I start a chapter and I type chapter 14, I'll write I don't know under it. So.
Stacy Hoditz asks, when will you go with Maison Stella in LA?
Maison Stella is another Rock Chick spinoff. Mace and Stella are the hero and heroine of Rock Chick Reckoning, and I had actually hoped to start to write that this year, but I don't intend to write it until I've spent some time in LA, which is impossible right now. So and I was just going to rent someplace in LA and probably spend maybe a month or two there, reacquainting myself with LA and using that as an excuse to visit some friends. but I can't do that, so I'm going to push it off. I really want this to kind of be an authentic, just like Denver was. We'll be in Denver, and we might be in Phoenix with this series, and but we also definitely be in LA. So I don't want to be making that up. I spent a lot of time in LA in my 30s. But that was a while ago, so I need to refresh my experience with that. So it's going to be a bit, but it's going to happen. I promise.
Elena Viverkova asks, would you like to know from how many countries your readers are from, and can you guess?
I would love to know. Can I guess? No. No, I was a dream maker. Somehow didn't get on some of, it's not available in some places. So I heard from my Romanian readers and my Pakistani readers that they weren't getting it. We're looking into that. We're going to find out what's going on with that. But it's always cool, always cool to know, to hear from folks that aren't English speaking or aren't from the U.S.
Pauline Cassie asks, apart from Three Wishes, if Passion Flicks were to make another of your books into a movie, which one would you choose?
Well, I would love to see Passion. This is me, doing somebody else's business. I would love to see them get into it, kind of a romance Netflix type of where they do series. And because I would bring a romance series for sure, and I have never said this before in my life, but I would trust them with Rock Chick, if they did it in a television series. So yeah, that would be if I got to pick. If Tosca would say, we'll take whatever you want and we'll do whatever you want us to do with it, I would say, make Rock Chick into a television series.
So you like to hold a lot of control when it comes to adapting your books, or you just let it go and do everything?
I've sold several, but nothing really comes of it. So that was one of the cool things about selling the will and being really involved in the process of that. Louise Austin was the director of that, and we were so simpatico because there was a time when Joni Kane wrote the script, and I loved the script. It was really well done, and then Louise and I were casting the film, and there was a time when I just said to Louise, "It's now yours," because I just trusted her so much with it. I mean, she just was really, really. I knew she would do it justice. Yeah, and I think that's because that's how Tosca Musk runs Passion Flicks. That's what she wants. Anybody for any of her films, any of her authors to experience. So, yeah, I loved it. I'd do that in a flash.
Cara Barth asks, have you written Wood's story in your Colorado Mountain series, or is that still out there as a possibility?
Wood is definitely going to get a novel, and the reason I'll try to condense this because it's a long emotional reason why I haven't written Wood's story. But there were three early series. There was the Rock Chicks, the Dream Men, and the Colorado Mountain series. And the Rock Chicks is essentially done. Dream Men is totally done. Colorado Mountain isn't done. So. I have recently realized that when I finish a book, I have to give myself a day or two to emotionally, people talk about book hangovers. Well, it's like saying goodbye to friends. And so I have to allow myself emotionally to get over the fact that I'm never really going to be in these characters' lives the way I was when I was writing the book. And so you can imagine when you say goodbye to a series, that's even harder. But saying goodbye to one of my first babies that made my career, and Sweet Dreams was the book that started it all for me. So I'm actually, I have to admit, it's really selfish. I'm not writing this book because I don't want to say goodbye to the series. I will, though, and I know that it has to happen. The other reason is that because Wood's book is going to go back in time, I have to very much familiarize myself with every single book that's come. So we're going to have to go back. We're going to be with Ty during this part, and we're going to be with Tate during this, and etc. And it needs to be right for you. So I have to Bible this series to within an inch of its life, which with that many books in the series is going to probably take weeks just to do that. And it's hard to find that kind of time, because it's going to take a month to write the book or 2 months to write the book, and then you're looking at it, really blocking out a lot of time. So, but it will happen. It will. I just need to get to that spot where I can do it.
Hannah Briner asks, are there any manuscripts that you have completed that are unpublished?
Good question. There's three. There was one that during the pandemic, when I should have been on the rocketroll.com getting the Fastlane lyrics out, I took this manuscript out and I dusted it off. I actually wrote it for another character and I didn't feel it. It wasn't him, and he wasn't with the right heroine, so I just abandoned it altogether, even though it was probably 2/3 done. And now I've revamped the whole thing, put it in a different city, cleaned it up, finished it, and that is going to be released. It's called Still Standing, and it's going to be released. It's going to be a new MC. It's going to be the Wild West MC series, and it's going to be an amalgamation of stories in the Chaos series, the Resurrection MC series, and then a new MC which I'm introducing called Aces High, and that'll be out in February. And then there's a book that you will never see because it's terrible. Called Bliss. It was the first book I ever finished, and I actually read it a couple years ago, thinking that maybe I could dust it off, and no, I would never subject anybody to that book, but I love it because it was the first book I finished. And then I have a novella mostly finished for Valentine from the Fantasyland series that hopefully I can finish off and put in the loose ends anthology.
Lee De Leon asks, have you started writing anything for Rome and Sniff Jackson?
Rome and Sniff. See, now you're seeing how incredibly emotionally involved with my characters. I think that people know Rome and Sniff from the Rock Chick series. They're Jules' runaways from Rock Chick Renegade, who have grown up now, and I'm really gonna have to be a special. They both will get stories, but I'm really gonna have to be in a special place for that for sure, because it's like telling Daisy stories from the Rock Chick books. She had a rough road, and Rome and Sniff both, being runaways in a way that they never wanted to go home and never did go home. I'm gonna have to be there with them and be able to tell you their stories. It's gonna
take a lot.
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot. So, but hopefully I'll find good places to place them. I like the idea of maybe Rome's story being in Maison Stella's series, and then Sniff, who will be a veteran, Who knows? We'll see where he fits, but I'm sure he'll fit somewhere.
Jazzy Robertson asks, if you can bring any of your characters into another author's worlds, which characters and what world?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. I think it would be interesting. I have a complete love for Kylie Scott's zombie series. I think that's crazy. But you need to read the series. It's just a really, really good zombie romance. It's fabulous. I would love to see, maybe how the Rock Chicks and the Hot Bunch from the Rock Chicks would deal with a zombie apocalypse. I think, and Kylie has a great sense of humor. So it would be really interesting to fiddle with that idea of the a zombie apocalypse and the Hot Bunch dealing with that. Yeah.
Lee DeLeon asks, I know you've got trips planned, but is Rock Chick Rendezvous a no-go this year due to the virus?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we were never going to do a Rock Chick Rendezvous this year because I'm going to be revamping it just because we never want to get stale. It's got to be, it's got to continue to be fun. And so I think the next one we're going to do is in 2022, actually. I have to check. In Denver. So, yeah. And when we know what's going on, we will let you know for sure.
Pauline Cassie asks, if you know, how many languages have your books been translated into?
14. I got that right off the bat. Yes, 14. Don't ask me which ones, though. I could probably rattle off a few, but I don't remember exactly.
Helen Karina Fernandez Salmon asks, have you ever thought to do a story for Billy Lawson?
Well, first of all, happy birthday yesterday, Helen. And secondly, Billy Lawson is Mitch Lawson's daughter, essentially, kind of. They're from a lawman. Mitch and Mara kind of adopt Mara's niece and nephew, and there's a lot of love. It depends on. There's a lot of love for Billy and Bud, these two kids who had a rough go. I think it would. I'm gonna have to get into like a children's, a spin-off when the children grow up, because I really can't wait to see how some of these parents deal with their kids going through the same thing that they went through. So yes, I hope to see a lot of kids find love.
Edith Cherit asks, would you ever write a full Eminem novel?
Might want to explain that for those that may not know.
Okay, Eminem is a man-on-man, gay romance, and I would like to. I would love to tell in Play It Safe. The heroine has a friend who is this wonderful, brilliant, handsome man called Lash, and he's gay and he's in the closet, and I would like him to find love. I really would love to see him come out to his mom and have his happily ever after. So it could happen. I never say never. Never.
Fabiola Medrano asks, or says, I just reread some books to get ready for Dreammaker. What about Elvira? I know in Walk Through Fire, Millie was working on a couple events. Is there something out there on Elvira and Malik?
Actually, there's quite a bit on Elvira and Malik, and I'm trying to recall which page on my website. There's a number of free short stories that you can read about Elvira and Malik and their how they met and how they got engaged. I had intended to kind of fill in a lot of those blanks, especially when I was writing Chaos, which was when they're during that series was when Malik and Elvira got together. But I haven't given up on that idea because Elvira, we need to know. I mean, now you'll see in Dreammaker that she's married, and we haven't been to the wedding, and it's going to be the wedding of the century, and it definitely was the wedding of the century. So I need to get back to doing some of those fun, free, quick reads, and Elvira's. Yeah, I need to focus on that.
Hannah Briner asks, would you ever consider publishing a book that does not end with the characters in a happy relationship?
No. Sorry, that's a really quickie, wasn't it? I feel like that was rude, but no. I mean, that's why I love romance, is that there's a happily ever after, and I mean, in The Rising, because it's a serial, that's the first time, except for Matilda Super Witch that I've ever written a cliffhanger. Yeah. But the intent was always when the series was over, people knew it was a serial. So, yeah.
Sandy Vanderhulst says, love to hear more of Justice Lonesome and Stella on tour. When you get to Maison Stella, will it be included?
Justice Lonesome is from the book Bounty, and Stella is from Rock Chick Reckoning, and they're both female rock stars. And yeah, I mean, I live my dreams. I live my fantasies through Stella and Justice. So, absolutely, yeah. I hope so. Yeah.
Yvonne Valenzuela Portillo says and asks, some authors have opened their worlds to other authors who write about secondary characters in their own series. Is this something that you would ever consider doing?
Again, never say never, but it would take a lot for me to do that. I would probably no. It would have to be a very secondary character, or somebody that I don't have an extreme emotional. Yeah, or something, or a character that I created for that author to write a story for. So I always knew it wasn't mine. But yeah, I know people do that, and I admire that, and I think it's super cool. But I'm just way too precious about my stories.
Keeney Allen asks, will Tack and Tyra make an appearance in the Dreammaker series?
Tack's there. I thought he was in this book, but yeah, Tack's around. And he's in Boone. Yes, Tyra and no, not yet, not so far. But remember, Tack's not the president of the Chaos MC, so Rome is definitely more center stage when it comes to that part, which I'm not going to really talk about because it spoils next. It's got spoilers from the next book. So yeah.
We'll have two more questions.
Okay.
Karen O'Cam asks, ever consider a time travel series?
Yes, I consider pretty much everything. I have lots of ideas in my head. I have an apocalypse idea in my head. I have lots of ideas in my head. But yeah, I actually pitched the kind of a reincarnation type of time travel type of thing once. So yeah, it's in my. I've started. I never used to do this. Just very recently during this pandemic, where I wasn't traveling and there weren't things to do. I started to when I have ideas for books, and I never did this before, write those ideas down in full. When they come to me, and I have a file of them now, and so this book is one of those books.
And for our final question, Jazzy Robertson asks, how do you know if a book is going to be a standalone or a series?
Sometimes, like with Complicated, I knew that Complicated was only going to be complicated, and that doesn't mean that like a character isn't going to appear in another series down the road. But there's not going to be a Complicated Glossop Nebraska series. usually, though, it kind of starts standalone. You know, you never really know what's going to come of it when you're writing it, and then like Play It Safe was not meant to be a standalone series. I had meant to do a Colorado Plains series, you know, to run alongside the Colorado Mountain series, but my writing took off and I didn't have time. You know, I had to give the readers what they, you know, the next books in the series that are already running before I could, you know, start a new one. So yeah, I mean, it's anything can happen essentially when you start writing a book.
Well, we want to thank you, Kristen, for taking time this afternoon, for being with the Poison Pen. Thank all of you for watching out there, and a special shout out to Leah Holden-Schmidt, who's listening in. I'm John Charles from the Poison Pen. Please do join us again. We have lots of virtual events lined up at the bookstore when we're all stuck at home or at work. Especially this month, we'll have Susan Elizabeth Phillips coming, Kristen Higgins, and Susan Mallory. So check our website for those. And thanks again, Kristen.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.